Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 14th episode of Limerick Junior Soccer Focus with myself, Adrian Finnin, and once again joined by Aidan Ryan as we dissect all of the FAI Cup action from last weekend and also look ahead to a raft of fixtures in the Premier League as well as a Munster Junior Cup fixture for Fairview B against Tramore this weekend. So we'll have plenty to preview as well on top of that. Aidan, I suppose the big news story to come out of the weekend was the exit of last year's runners-up in the FAI Junior Cup, Pike Rovers, who were defeated by Tipperary outfit Peak Villa after a penalty shootout. The game ended 2-2 in, I suppose, just from reports from the likes of yourself, a typical gritty Pike display to stay in the game, levelled late on, Peak scoring two very good goals. But we did flag this game, obviously, last week, Aidan, as a really dangerous game for Pike just because of the form and the energy that Peak would bring to it. And it worked out that way in the end. Peak never gave up and went all the way to the end.
Yeah, we've been saying it for a few weeks, Adrian. This Peak Villa team are an up and coming side, doing very well in the Tip South League, and doing very well in the cups. And they've been kind of thereabouts the last few years in terms of the FAI, last 32, last 16. So this was always going to be a tough fixture for Pike. Horrendous conditions, Adrian. I know you were at a game yourself where the conditions were just as bad. It was absolutely horrendous above in the Pike field Sunday. I mean, I had been saying to people at one stage in the second half, it was so dark and the rain was coming down so bad, I could barely see the other end of the pitch from where I was. So it was really tough on both sides. Having said that, I really enjoyed the cup game, Adrian. It was a real cup game. The sides got stuck into each other from the start. Peak Villa were playing with a very strong breeze and what I will describe as the lighter showers in the first half. They were driving into the club at Pike, so they tended to dominate possession without creating huge amount of stuff really. But they got a fantastic goal by Stephen O'Carroll to take the lead. He a very good player, Stephen O'Carroll, and used the pace of the ball that came across the box to him and the heavy breeze to hit a beautiful shot into the top corner. It dipped just underneath the crossbar from about 25 yards, and it gave Gary Neville had absolutely no chance with it. He literally didn't move. It just flew into the top of the net. They probably deserved it on their first half display. Pike were very disappointing in the first half, Adrian, lumping a lot of ball into the wind without any positivity behind us. Not too sure what the game plan was really in the first half. I mean, you had Shane Walsh playing in front of the back four, and if you have a guy like Shane Walsh playing in front of the back four, I assume you have him there to get the ball off the centre halves and get the ball off the full backs and try and keep it nice and tidy and nice and short. And I know the conditions are poor, but he didn't get near the ball in the first half. And even when he did, Peak Villa played Mike Ryan. They played a 4-2-3-1 Peak Villa, and they had Mike Ryan, who you're familiar with from his time at Jamesborough, playing in the middle of that three. And he himself, Stephen O'Carroll, and the very impressive Keith Cahill on the right were pressing high up the pitch. And even if you did try to get on the ball, you weren't given much time on it. But I just thought Pike's tactics in the first half weren't great, and a lot of players playing well below par and not giving Peak Villa much to worry about, or not giving Peak Villa much to worry about in terms of an attacking force. They had one chance, Adrian, that was a Colin Daly header, which kind of went harmlessly wide. There wasn't enough power in it. So Peak Villa were full value in the first half for that 1-0 lead, Adrian.
Yeah, I know that. It's probably soul destroying, I suppose, now for Pike, because people have been writing the obituaries against Pike maybe for the last 3 to 4 years. Aidan, maybe almost hoping because of the age profile that they wouldn't make it to this round of like they've often, as we've mentioned, been in the latter stages like last year of the FAI when they probably weren't expected to. If you were to look at it, Aidan, judging by league form, if you didn't see any games, you'd probably say this is a big shock with Pike going out. But I suppose in terms of actually how they played in recent weeks going up to it, you did have a fear, and you did mention that about this game.
Yeah, and I mean, in the second half, to be fair to them, Adrian, Pike did what they do best. They started to get at Peak. a lot of long balls into the box. Eventually wore them down. Robbie Williams made 3 or 4 4 changes at once, bringing himself on. Some of that proved fruitful. Some of it didn't, in my opinion. Certainly bringing himself, I thought he was excellent when he came on himself, and he scored the goal from the free kick. I thought the wall was lined poorly now by the Peak goalie, Adrian. I thought he left a bit of a gap there, and Robbie Williams took full advantage of it. And when that goal went in, you felt, well, this is a typical Pike. They'll just grind them down now and wear them down towards the end of the match.
I was full sure they were going to win after getting that goal at the end then.
Yeah, and the general consensus with the Pike supporters and neutrals from Limerick there was that was going to happen. Now they continued to dominate. They missed a few great chances, Adrian. Steve McGann just a header over the bar. Kevin Barry had come on. Before that, actually, Aaron Murphy missed a gilt-edged chance at the back post. Kevin Barry missed one after that as well. But Peak had a little golden spell, Adrian, for about 10 or 12 minutes just after Pike scored. And they were pushing hard down Pike's left, which I felt with the change Pike made had weakened a bit. And Keith Cahill and Mike Ryan, Stephen O'Carroll, they were making inroads down that side of the pitch, slowly but surely. The goal they got was absolute peach. It was like the first goal they got. Second phase, Keith Carroll got the ball on the right. Pike didn't defend it particularly well. A pinpoint cross, an absolutely beautiful cross to the back post. And the veteran defender, Alan Leahy, who turns 40 this year, came in at the back post and absolutely powered the ball into the roof of the net. And you felt then, would Pike come again? Obviously, you were feeling Pike would come again, Adrian, and put pressure on, but you just had that feeling. I had that feeling that Pike were going to see it out. It was just one of those games where even though they were physically smaller, Adrian, didn't have the height complex that Pike had, didn't have the physicality Pike had, but they had given everything. They've been given everything, well organised, throwing their bodies in front of the ball, had a bit of luck here and there with a few latch-ditch tackles and interceptions, and Pike not taking advantage of the pressure they put on. But right at the death, into injury time, Pike, typical Pike again, got a free kick 50 yards out, ball put into the box. I actually thought it went straight into the net, but I was informed afterwards that Pat Mullins had got a nick in it. But no saving it. The power of the free kick, it was driven hard. Obviously, Pat Mullins got a slight deflection on it with his head, and it just flew past the Pike goalie, and that was devastating for Peak. But like you say, you shouldn't be surprised, Adrian, with Peak. They're a good side, are unbeaten this year, have beaten Michaels, have beaten Clonmel Town, and a lot of youngsters with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of pace, and you have a little bit of toughness in there, little bit of experience, football experience with Alan Lee at centre half, and the aforementioned Mike Ryan and Stephen O'Carroll.
Yeah, I tell you that any Limerick team that is remaining probably won't be relishing the fact that they could face Peakville in the next round, that's for sure. Unfortunately, we're starting on two dour notes, I suppose, in that there's another team. I was at the game in Portland Park on Sunday, and where Summerville Rovers, obviously a historic day for Summerville Rovers, taking on Gorey Rangers, who were much fancied, as we know, going into the tie on Sunday. As you said, absolutely horrendous conditions, particularly in the second half. First half looked okay, but you could just feel the clouds enveloping over the ground. Horrible start for Summerville. The one thing we talked about last week, Aidan, was the fact that Summerville needed to maybe not concede for at least the first half an hour, maybe the first half. They conceded 2 goals within 7 minutes. The first goal literally after a minute, and then of course Gorey Rangers hit the post from a header. They also hit the crossbar, and there was another save from James O'Connor and a clearance off the line. This all happened in the first 15 minutes, and it was incredible, really. You were thinking that Gorey would go on and hit for 6, but to credit Mark Blake and his team, in fairness, when they were 3-0 down, because they did concede another goal, Stephen Kiley scored a very good goal from his point of view. Not so sure should the goalkeeper, Alex Sumber, have done much better with that, to be honest. It was like he was glued to the floor when the ball sailed in. I'm not sure if you've seen it yourself, but Yeah, so 3-1 at half time, there was a bit of a fighting spirit in the Summerville team. And to be fair, considering Evan O'Grady, their captain, was sent off maybe 20 minutes, into the second half. They showed a lot of fighting spirit to keep the score at what it was. Now, Gorey did have loads of chances. And actually, James O'Connor, who we've known from years ago with the likes of Geraldines, had a great game in goals. I mean, probably show you what might have been. He's definitely probably could be a Premier style goalie on his day, but he made some great saves to stop Gorey. But overall, Aidan, it went the way we predicted if you were just looking at the result. But to be fair, I suppose Summerville 3-1, against a team that, normally get to the last 8, last 16 of the FAI. It's I suppose no real criticism you could put against them on that scoreline anyway.
No, absolutely not. And given what you've said with the sending off in the second half, a lot of Premier teams will really hurt you when that happens, Adrian. They're 3-1 up and a player gets sent off. They'll take advantage of that and hurt you big time. Just come back to James O'Connor, Adrian. I worked with James at Geraldines, and he's a quality keeper. I suppose if you had a criticism about James, it's his height. It's a pity he's not a foot or two taller, but a fantastic goalie, very confident in his own ability. So I'm glad he had a good game on Sunday. But look, Gorey will have gone home. I spoke to somebody actually from Wexford last night, Adrian, from another club in Wexford last night, and they actually mentioned it had got around about the goalkeeper making from their point of view, a bit of a boo-boo with the Summerville goal. Now that's of no concern to Summerville. It puts certainly respectability on the scoreline, the fact that they scored. But a great achievement for Summerville to get that far. And I think Mark Blake will take loads from it. And the big thing for him now is, Adrian, we've said it before about these things. Can he bring that intensity that was obviously there for the last few weeks with training and stuff in preparation for this game? Can he bring it into the league? Because they want to get promoted. And I see they're down to play a tough game Sunday morning. Home to Regional B.
And now they'll be missing Evan O'Grady in that one. Yeah,
well, that's a tough fixture now. So we'll see, can they bring that into the match, and can he get the motivation up again to get them to get a result out of that one?
Yeah, absolutely. In fairness, it was probably a fairly professional job from Gorey in front of a very healthy attendance actually as well, Aidan. In fairness, I know the club really pushed to get an attendance there. There was a couple of hundred there anyway, at least, and on a very tough Sunday in Portland Park. But I have to say there was a few Gorey players, really solid centre backs. I'm not sure if you would have heard of him before, but Stephen Maloney was one of them, and he actually scored from a header, but they looked unbelievably threatening, the two of centre backs from set pieces all day long. Paul Brennan, the winger, left winger, really stood out as well, and his left back behind him, Glenn O'Brien, in the second half was a thorn in the side of Summerville, bombing up and down, especially when they had the extra man all day as well. So you can see why Gorey are consistently, even though a lot of people to me were saying afterwards Gorey didn't look great, but if you look at the game, they were 3-0 up after a half an hour in the match as well. Did have a lot of chances, and then the conditions kind of were a bit of a leveler, with all due respect to Summerville as well, in the second half. So I can see why Gorey have made inroads, particularly at home as well in the FAI.
But just both Maloney and Brennan. Now it's amazing that you've mentioned those players as the standout players, Adrian, both on the Wexford Oscar trainer team in recent years. So both quality players. Listen, if you're the Gorey manager, you're going home in the bus and you're saying to your players, professional job done.
Yeah.
Away from home, if you're looking at it from their point of view, Adrian, away from home, tight pitch, heavy underfoot conditions. As you said, great to see a great crowd, a partisan crowd. They scored 3 goals away from home. Possibly, like you said, maybe could have scored 1 or 2 more. They'll be delighted with that into the next round. They'll be over the moon with it. So a good professional job by Gorey, Adrian.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though we started with doom and gloom on the Limerick front with 2 sides out, Aidan, it wasn't all doom and gloom. There were certainly a couple of routine victories, which we expected, thankfully, as well, for the Limerick sides. On Saturday, Ballynanty Rovers won 3-0 away in Everton, which we did flag as an expected win. We didn't know what way it would go. But again, you were just speaking about professional jobs at Gorey, a professional job from Ballynanty as well. One of your old players, Adrian Power, on the score sheet again, the evergreen Adrian Power, and James Fitzgerald with 2 goals as well. And obviously, he'd be no stranger to the FAI later rounds too. So, yes, a professional job done by Ballynanty in Cork.
Yeah, I spoke to Ray McMahon, actually, Adrian. just after the game, and he was on his way home, and they were delighted with the victory. Clean sheet away from home, much like we flagged last week. Conditions are very poor down there. Pitch was in bad nick, but he said they were just teasing each other out for maybe 20-25 minutes, and he said once they got the lead goal, they played quite well, Ballynanty, and got players on off the bench who contributed as well and made an impact when they came on. So a really good victory for them. Again, a clean sheet. Can't argue with that result away from home, Adrian.
Yeah, absolutely. And another team who won away from home with the same scoreline 3-0 was Regional United. Now, you know, Dave Cowper reeled back in the years, actually scoring 2 goals, which was probably unexpected. And we hadn't seen him in the last few weeks either from injury, from what I believe. But he scored 2 goals. Now, your man Owen Duff was outshunned by him on the day. He did get on the score sheet, Aidan, but he didn't get the 3 that you were hoping for, or possibly the 4 that you might have been hoping for.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed with Regional. I'm going to have to have a word with Sean and the lads about that. And that Owen Duff fella is not much good, is he? 1 goal away from against that crowd. No, seriously, not a great victory. Listen, not a clean sheet. 3 goals away from home. I'm assuming the goals that David Cowper was this? Yeah, got 2. Yeah. So I'm assuming they were set pieces, because I can't see him making a daisy run up the pitch, beating 4 or 5 and hitting a 30-yarder into the roof of the net. I'm assuming there were corners or free kicks or something. Which, to be fair to you, you flagged last week that could be a route to goal for him, and it certainly was. And they're in the next round, and they'll be delighted with that again, you know, to go up there and get a clean sheet and win so comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. Another Limerick side away. It was the away teams that all had the victories this weekend, but Fairview Rangers obviously kept their assault on the FAI intact with a 2-0 victory over Manola. Stephen Bradley, another one of the players that you managed actually with Janesborough, scored to give them 1-0 lead at half time. And then Jack Ara came off the substitute bench for Dara Rainsford and scored for Fairview as well, Aidan. I suppose that just goes to show with evidence as to why the likes of Jack Ara were brought in. You're bringing him off the bench and he seals the victory for you. Yeah,
and isn't it great to have that strength and depth, that you can bring on a quality player, take off a quality player like Dara Rainsford and bring on the quality of Jack Ara. So it proves that in terms of the forward department, so plenty of talent there. Again, what a victory, you know. It's another clean sheet. It's huge, like it's massive, because it just breeds loads of confidence. You could be drawn away again in the next round, but you know, if you're the manager and the coach of that team, and your players in that team, that breeds confidence, keeping clean sheets away from home. Great to see Stephen Bradley on the score sheet, so safe from penalties as he has been the last couple of years. Another excellent win for a Limerick side. And look, we have 3 in the last 32, Adrian, and 3 away great victories. Can't argue with that. It's brilliant for the Limerick District League.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose because you only have 5, we'll say, District League teams out of town that generally go into the out of town stages, and what do you make of having 3 teams in the last 32? Is that a success?
I think it is. Listen, you know, normally when the 4 or 5 or 5 or 6 or whoever go out, it's normally 5 go out, you'll always get one that'll get caught, you know. You can get a hard draw. Look, as it turns out, in Summerville's case, they got out and put up a decent fight against Gorey. But 3's a decent representation. You'll be probably hoping that they stay apart in the draw, and hopefully they'll get through the next round. Just on a side note, interesting to see Jeffrey Judge back in the Fairview team, Adrian, on Sunday, and played in midfield with Shane Duggan and Stephen Bradley. So we were kind of looking at that in the last couple of weeks, wondering what they would do in terms of the loss of AJ O'Connor. So Scott Kerwin obviously played left full, I would assume, looking at the team, but certainly doesn't dampen the strength of the midfield.
Yeah, certainly not. And speaking of Fairview Rangers, a huge weekend for Fairview Rangers on 2 fronts. And they've got a league game on Saturday evening away to Ashling and Acotty. That starts at 7 o'clock. And then firstly, I suppose I just wanted to talk about the Fairview Rangers B team, who they're in 4th or 5th in Premier A. That's my own division. I probably should know that. But they've had a fairly good start to that season. They have Tramore from Waterford, Aidan, who haven't made a brilliant start to their own league campaign. They've had 2 victories and 4 defeats, 13 goals conceded as well. So they're 8 out of 10 teams in their league. I suppose, look, when you have a home draw like that and you see a team who haven't exactly been firing on all cylinders, you look at that as a brilliant opportunity to go even further.
Yeah, it's a tricky tie to call now, this one, Adrian, because Tramore are a very good football side and have always been a very good football side. They'll come up here and they'll play a lot of open football. They keep it on the floor. They'll build it from the back. I think they beat Ballynanty in the last round 2-0. Ballynanty would be in the division with them as well. Maybe ahead of the league by a place or so. Yeah. And they did have a good victory last weekend in the FAI, because they're into the last 32 of the FAI as well. They beat, I think it was a Dublin team, Fairview Celtic, 2-1. And Fairview Celtic from the UCL League, and they've been unbeaten in 15 or 16 games, Fairview Celtic. So a decent win there. But like you said, their league form has been poor. You know, they've lost 3 or 4 in a row. I think they won the first 2 games in their league, and they've lost 3 or 4 in a row since. They've lost to Villa FC, they've lost to Dungarvan, Waterford Hibs, and Ferrybank. So their league form has been poor, and like you say, conceding a few goals. This could be a good chance for Fairview B. And Fairview B,
considering as well, Aidan, they've already, sorry to interrupt, but they've had a very good win over Crewe in the last round as well, and without a goalkeeper. I think Bobby Tier played in goals for Fairview Rangers B team on the day.
Yeah, and won comfortably 3-0, and also remember, beat Summerville in the round previous to that, didn't they? They beat Summerville on penalties. It was 3-3. So good pedigree from Fairview being this reasonable form in their own league. Have won, my brain. I think they've won 7 in their league and lost 3. So they're in decent league form. Young team. Listen, they could cause. Listen, it could be a shock. You'd have to cause it a shock if they're going to be beating a Waterford Premier team. But a hard game to call now, to be honest. It could be a tight game, very tight game. Could be extra time.
Definitely could be extra time. And I wonder, I assume that Kevin Corwin, the Fairview Rangers B manager, will be putting a word into Paul Danaher that at all costs to avoid using any of his players if needs be on Saturday night in the game that Fairview Rangers A play against Ashling-Anacotty. Yeah,
and listen, look, you'd expect them to give him a break on that score. The Fairview squad should be strong enough to cope on Saturday evening with that league game. Listen, it's all about that Fairview B team Sunday. To be fair, they have a chance of advancing to the next round, and they deserve the opportunity to have the strongest squad available for it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've mentioned it a couple of times this year, but I hate maybe coming down hard on anyone or a club and being full of doom and gloom, but you have Ashling-Anacotty hosting Fairview Rangers B, and the noises coming out of Ashling-Anacotty, I suppose, Aidan, aren't great at the moment with the transfer window, we'll say, upon us as well, hearing all sorts of rumours, and the common denominator seems to be Ashling-Anacotty players leaving. Now I know, and I could be standing corrected on this, Mikey Conlon has left Pike Rovers and is going to join Ashling-Anacotty. And I think Joel Custrain from 3D United is all but done as well to Ashling-Anacotty. But there are rumours of a lot of players and a lot of senior players leaving Ashling-Anacotty. So, that would suggest that morale isn't very high at the club. Yeah,
it looks like it's going to be a tough time in the next few weeks out there. Adrian, fair enough with the couple of players coming in. Good old Limerick rumour mill, Adrian. If rumours are to be believed, anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 players could be on the way out. It certainly looks like there's at least 3 definitely going, possibly 5 from what I'm hearing. So that isn't boding well for morale. Recent form hasn't been great either, Adrian. Listen, we were here 4 or 5 weeks ago and Ashling were top of the league. And Ashling aren't top of the league anymore. I think they're down in 5th place now. So it's hard to know exactly what is taking place out there at the moment. No, they did get a point out of the last recent league game against Nina, and they beat Borough in the Tui Cup 2-0. So their last couple of results, I know they lost the Pike before that as well. So the last couple of results haven't been too bad. But this was a club we have to say they had designs on winning the league, Adrian. Not alone doing well in cups and getting to the outer stages of the FAI and the Munster Junior Cup, but had designs on certainly being there or thereabouts in the league. And the way things are going at the moment, that is not going to happen because results haven't been good, and the noises coming out of there are disconcerting to say the least. So it's hard to see where they're going, and you'd wonder as well in terms of type of football that they're trying to play, what kind of an identity they have. You know, when you speak about Fairview, when you speak about Pike, and you speak about Balla, we know what kind of identity they have in terms of how they play and how they approach games. And I've been at a few Ashling matches, and I'm not sure what kind of an identity they have in terms of how they approach games and how they play, Adrian. So I'm expecting Fairview to turn the screw Saturday night. Jeffrey Judge back, possibly. You know, you're looking at Rainsford, Ellis and Coughlin up top, maybe Jack Harra. I'm expecting him to turn the screw big time.
And speaking of identity, maybe just going off the field rather than on the field at the moment, Aidan, Ashling Anacotty have put a lot of resources into the A team over the last maybe 2 seasons now. You know, we've mentioned obviously very decorated players and the likes of Thomas and Shane Clark going out there. Shane Tracy's been there, Tony Whitehead, Liam Quinn made a really good impact. I know he came from Maru, but he was well known before that as well. Obviously John Mulready too, that you have managed with Janesborough, all going out there. Now it looks like, you know, the majority of those players, without tempting fate, could be on the way out. If it's not this transfer window, it might be at the end of the season anyway. You'd wonder, Aidan, is it the case now with Ashling Anacotty? Are they at this crossroads? Because we see the size of the club. They have an A team, a B team, a C team, and a D team just in the junior leagues alone. I think the one time they wanted to put in an E team, and they were told that you'd nearly have a team in every division. So that couldn't happen. And then you obviously have the underage system as well there. Do you think it's a case now, Aidan, that maybe they should just concentrate on, instead of trying to get the more established players in, you know, from other clubs that have went and done it and been successful, that hasn't worked for them maybe the last year and a half, 2 years? Do you think that they should just concentrate maybe on trying to bring the minors through, try to get a better relationship maybe with the B team? Not suggesting that there isn't a good relationship there, but, you know, trying to bridge that gap so that, you know, those type of players can come up seamlessly and be competitive in the Premier.
Well, that was always, like, when we're speaking about identity, Adrian, I always felt, and I presume most people around the city felt, that was always their DNA. Years ago, their DNA was always to promote from within, and you'd always bring in one or two outside players, but they wouldn't have been the established players that have come in recently. And like you said, all of a sudden, huge resources went into the A squad in the last few years. It seemed to change when Micah Hearn was appointed manager there, when the two Clarks and Shane Tracy arrived out into the squad. And then it just ballooned after that. Now, you know, they did bring in Shane O'Hanlon as manager after that. And if you were to bring in a manager to look after that side of things and deal with loads of established players, there's no doubt about it, he was the right appointment. And short term, it certainly worked in that they won the Munster Junior Cup under Shane O'Hanlon's management. Now, soon after that, Shane O'Hanlon saw fit to resign. And that's a big question. If you've invested in bringing in a manager of that caliber who has won trophies throughout his career and has the experience of dealing with established players that were at the club, why would he see fit to resign? You know, I found that just absolutely mind-boggling. Since then, it has gone, in my opinion, has gone steadily downhill. And I think they do need to revert to type. They need to revert to bring in their younger players, having a bit of faith in them. Maybe a couple of the more established, experienced players, but not players in their 30s and that. I would look for players maybe 27, 28. Bring them in to help them along and go in that direction. Because why would you have an academy and not use the players that are in it? And if you have players that are not ready, maybe at 18 or 19, make sure they're in your teams below that, like you said, the B team, the C team, the D team, and give them a year's experience down there. And you'll always pick one or two down there, Adrian, that will be good enough. And if you're a good enough coach and a good enough manager, you'll make good players out of them. And I think that's what they they need to do, because at the moment I just think the whole thing is dysfunctional, and that's the word I will use for it. It's totally dysfunctional, and it hasn't worked in my opinion.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens, obviously from the start of the transfer window, but obviously more longer term as well. I brought us onto that subject, and we still have 3 games to discuss with only about 8 or 9 minutes to go in the Premier. It's a huge weekend for both Mungard and Janesborough, and that's for sure. We do expect Shanahan to make a couple of signings. We do believe that Dillian Kelly-Higgins is signing from Ballynanty already. That's all but confirmed too. But that's one signing. But anyway, just on the terms of the fixture, I mean, what way would you see this? Like, as Mungret, I've been speaking to our manager, Richie Burke, and he's obviously aiming, going home for the likes, especially at home, for a win. But do you reckon that obviously for both sides, considering they have to play each other twice and all the other teams in the bottom half twice, do you think that not losing is probably as important for both of these teams?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think if both of them come out with a point, they'll be quite happy with that. I think the win is probably more important for Richie than it is for Shane, and I'm going to say that because I think, as I've said in the last 2 weeks, I think I always thought Shane was going to Shanahan was going to improve his squad. You've alluded to one player that looks like he's coming in there. There's another player definitely confirmed since last night to come in, and I reckon maybe another 2 might come in as well. Now, they might be ready for this weekend. Maybe 1 or 2 might be ready for this weekend. So that Borough squad is going to improve. Now, they still have to play, Adrian. You can get in the players.
Yeah.
But they still have, Shane has to get the best out of them. Shanahan has to get the best out of them and make sure they play for the club, and that you pick up results. And if we're being really cutthroat about it, Borough's form hasn't been great. Hasn't been great, Adrian. Got a draw recently against Crew Park, wasn't it?
That's right.
1-0 till the last 10 minutes. I know they were disappointed, didn't see out the win. It was an important point for them, but before that, lost to Coon at home, lost to Bala away. So listen, the form hasn't been great, so Shane needs to pick it up. No, I think they will pick it up. I think they'll improve in the second half of the season, and I fancy them to go on a run. For Richie, very important match. Certainly can't afford to lose it. There's no doubt about that. He needs to be picking up points. The form hasn't been too bad, Adrian. Lost to Fairview 2-0, put up a decent performance. Was it regional they lost in the derby match again? Good last 20 minutes, came back when it was 2-0 down, got a goal back. But Adrian, no points. I keep saying it. The moral victories are no good. You need points. You don't want to be relegated out of this division after getting up. And Richie's a good manager. I've no doubt that he'll work his socks off to turn it around, but they're in a precarious position at the moment, and he needs to put points on board.
Absolutely. And I suppose, speaking of which, you have Janesborough tipped, as we know, to win the Shield, which is your love child, the Shield. But anyway, we have Charleville, who are my tip for it, facing away against Crew Park, who obviously will be desperate for a win as well. Very patchy form, as we know too. Crew Park had the Indian sign over Charleville last year. They were league winners and beat them in the cup final and beat them in both fixtures in the league. I know it's a different division. Hard one to call, Aidan. I'm not going to lie. I've set in the fence with this one for a draw. I don't know what you think.
I think on current form, Charleville might just snatch it. We saw them in the cup game against Coona. Adrian, thought they played some fantastic football. Yeah. Deserved the win. I think they're playing well. Their last league game, I think they picked up a point with Coona, didn't they? So listen, they've tightened up a bit. My big graw with them is they're conceding goals, but they didn't concede against Coona in the cup game. Drew with them in the league game. I think if Adam has his full squad available, they might nick the 3 points there. Crew haven't been active the last few weeks, so they might be a bit rusty. So it'll be interesting to see how that game turns out. I think Charleville just might snatch the points there.
Yeah, and on a final game, obviously, we've spoken in depth about Pike, but we haven't spoken too much about their opponents. Nina will face Pike. If I'm not mistaken, is this the third time both sides have played each other, but the first time in the league?
First time in the league. Didn't they? Pike beat him in the 2-week cup.
2-week cup, yeah. And was there an FAI encounter as well?
That was on penalties, and then I was at that game up in the Pike field, and they won 2-0. So, Pike have kind of the Indian sign over him a little bit. Nina are different. different gravy now this year, haven't they, Adrian?
In fairness, yeah.
Playing really well. Defence is nice and tight. Team is very fit. A lot of enthusiasm there. Reasonably good organisation. This isn't a gimme for Pike. And, Robbie Williams has a bit of work to do to get the morale up after Sunday, after losing in the penalties and that extra time. And, it's going to be a tough game for him. Hard to call it. Could be a draw. Could be a draw. Pike might nick it, but could be a draw. Nina are capable of getting a point out of that game, but if Williams can get him up for the game, they might nick it.
Yeah, I have Pike down for a 1-0 victory. It wouldn't be like Pike to do it, as we've said on plenty of occasions. My thanks once again to yourself, Aidan, for what is a packed show this evening, but we've got through it in the end. And obviously we hope that everyone can join us next week as well, as we review this weekend's action. And then a final weekend's action before the break hits for Christmas will be upon us. So we hope you can join us then.